South Florida, we have a series.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this Thursday, April 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez. You can follow me on Twitter at MondoMan12. Follow the show account on Twitter and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. Don't forget to also subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. And thank you so much for the everydayers who are here to get your Florida Panthers fix every single day. And man, what an episode that you guys came here to listen to hear my guest and I, Francisco Oporta, discuss the 6-3 Florida Panthers win over the Boston Bruins on the road to tie this series up at 1. And I see on my camera Francisco jamming out.
Let's
excited.
Go. Yes. I think this is the first time I've been on your show after a win, so I'm actually excited.
That's correct.
Yes, there we go.
So what a time for you to come on to celebrate a win for this Panthers team. And let's just go right into it. We spoke really I spoke after game 1 and even on the off day about what the Panthers needed to do to just get to Linus Ullmark and what they were doing. And of course, the great news that the Florida Panthers had with Sam Bennett being back, and literally right on the first shift of finishing a check on Charlie McAvoy to make his presence felt early. Sam Bennett on a mission tonight and having 8 shots on goal, double the amount of shots than the next person. Nobody had more than 4 on the night, and just making his presence felt. And of course, Alex Lyon. I mean, the possession was dominated by the Bruins in this one. More opportunities. Alex Lyon standing tall on multiple rush chances, but this was about the second line, and this was about the Florida Panthers making the adjustments necessary. I want to give the floor to you, Francisco.
So game 1, just looking at what the fans were saying, what everybody was saying about the Panthers, I mean, my opinion was that they didn't play really terribly at all in game 1. I'm like, oh, this is they hung in there. All right. And it seemed like the Bruins just got the breaks in that one more than anything else. It wasn't like this overwhelming, dominant team that was just way too, like, the Panthers were out of their league. Like, the Panthers hung with the Bruins earlier this season. They hung with them in game 1. And, Matty Tkachuk had said that before game 2, like, hey, we found out we could hang with these guys. And lo and behold, they hung with them today. So today I was more focused on certain players. One, yes, Sam Bennett, he's back. And man, is he back. He is back. He was there, man. You could tell it was just like a factor that was just missing. And then I was also noticing, like, there were some other players, because people were saying that Barkov had disappeared in game 1. Like, where was he? He was just invisible. And I was like, oh, and then this game, I'm like, you could tell Barkov was making himself present in this game. So that was good. Ryan Lomberg makes himself present in this game as well. That man,
even though he took 2 dumb penalties.
I know, but you give and you take. And sometimes, that's kind of what you have to take a little bit. But sometimes, man, that man gives, and he gets under people's skin. Like, it was just guys I was looking out for. And then, of course, Brandon Montour. Monty's don't, like, man, that man is great. So just I was noticing guys more today than anything else than I had seen in game 1. And I mean, the Panthers didn't look phased at any point in the game against Boston. So every like punch, Like the Panthers would take it and then they punch right back. And then third period happened and they just kept whamming, literally and figuratively. So, and we got a series. We do have a series, and man, these teams hate each other now. So that's good for hockey, and it's gonna be fun in Sunrise.
Yes. Game 3 Friday night, 7:30, and it's and also talking about just the second line about how they were buzzing and Sam Bennett just right away, zero hesitation going up the gut for the Panthers to create opportunities. I also want to give an honorable mention to Radko Gudas protecting the net, and of course, especially on Brad Marchand as well. So, and we know the guys on the Boston Bruins who have been the annoying guys in this series, the Tyler Bertuzzis and the Brad Marchand getting his second goal on in the series, and of course Tyler Bertuzzi getting that goal on the power play. And outside of that garbage time goal, Francisco, the Panthers didn't give up a goal at even strength. Of course, a bad turnover by Anthony Duclair that led to the Brad Marchand goal, and then the Ryan Lomberg, the second Ryan Lomberg penalty that led to the power play goal by Tyler Bertuzzi on a redirection as well. But the Panthers never trailed at all throughout this game, which great to see. And also with Matthew Tkachuk, even prior to the first goal in the first period, we saw an opportunity for him to chip it back out, to chip it and keep it in the Panthers zone, and Eetu Luostarinen one too many moves to get it past Linus Ullmark, and then it results in that first goal later on. So we're seeing how the Panthers are putting the pressure on the Boston Bruins and disrupting their zone exits, and we even saw that prior to the first goal.
Yeah. One of the goals by Bennett, the blue line had kept that puck in, and Bennett grabbed it and was able to shoot it in. So that was I forgot which defenseman it was that kept Boston from exiting their end, and there was just like a little poke at the puck. Bennett was able to loop back around and score a goal. So yeah, the Duclair one was ugly, and that could have been a turning point in the game.
Could have.
It was that glaringly bad. And, Marchand just kind of put it right through. I mean, Lyon what can you do right at that point? But the Panthers, yes, they never trailed. They always kept it together and never seemed two-phased. Like Boston got within one. It's like, okay, all right, let's see what we can do. Let's keep going at it. Let's keep playing our game. And they never let panic set in.
Yeah, and speaking of not letting panic set in, I mean, we saw Paul Maurice shift the lines very quickly in the first period. Of course, putting Rhino on that top line, and then Anthony Duclair back on that third line, and then we saw a little bit of a line change later on where Eetu got shifted a little bit back to that top line as well. And this is the time where you need to make your adjustments as well throughout the postseason. And we saw, even in game 2 of the Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, you're just looking at one series at a time, one game at a time, but how quickly Paul Maurice was able to make those adjustments, you got to give credit to him that he didn't wait too long to do it.
We're going to see Paul Maurice, because his hire specifically was made for the playoffs. That was the thing everybody had said before the season had started. Paul Maurice, he's been here before. He's never won, but he's been here before. He knows how to get a team. He knows how to get into the playoffs and things like that and play. And his whole mantra throughout the season, we're going to play playoff style hockey, and then, his voice gives out because he's always like very hoarse at the end of the game. And
he does this.
Yeah, he needs a lozenge. He needs, he's got something, but this is the time. Now we're gonna see. Everybody was like, fire Paul Maurice, all this other stuff. Then of course they find a way to get into the playoffs. And now we'll see what Paul Maurice is made of. We'll see what the difference is between him and Andrew Brunette last season. that
Yeah.
rookie coach, seasoned coach. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and speaking of Andrew Burnett, there was a released video of his
Oh boy.
DUI out in Delray Beach that happened back
Yeah,
in early February, and he
yeah.
said he coached the Florida Panthers, and he's like, "You guys don't care," and then the police officers were like, "No," and yeah. So if you want to see that video of Andrew Burnett's DUI video,
Oh
it's
boy.
posted by Andy Slater on Twitter, where you guys can see that. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2. We're going to talk about what specifically the Panthers did in order to get to the Boston Bruins and to score 6 goals in at TD Garden. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about Built Bar. And something exciting is coming to Built.com on April 22nd. I don't have all the details yet, but the excitement is real, and it's something you won't want to miss. If you know how Built works, they have the most incredible protein bars in the world, and they do these amazing flavor drops with unreal flavors in limited quantity. So mark your calendars and head to Built.com on Saturday, April 22nd, to be one of the first to discover what all the hype is about. I can't wait to see what this new flavor is. Make sure you use promo code LOCKEDON15 and you'll get 15% off your order at built.com. Segment number 2 here on this Thursday, April 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I got Francisco Oporta here, Florida Panthers historian, and also Marlins historian as well. We can't forget that part of it. So, Francisco, one thing that we also spoke about after game 1 was the Panthers' inability to get in front of the net. We broke on Wednesday's show. We broke down about what the Panthers didn't do as far as getting bodies around the net, but not necessarily in that blue paint. And of course, the goals for the Panthers, the second one that came from Eric Stahl, a turnover in the neutral zone, not afraid to go up the gut, so much open space that the Boston Bruins gave him to make it 2-1 at the time. But then when you think about later on in the game, when the Panthers were 4-on-4 and the chance to get it up to the point and then shoot it from there. I'm talking about the Montour one that gave the Panthers the 3-2 lead. I mean, Barkov only had one shot on goal on the night, and that was that shorthanded chance that you could have argued that it was a hook on David Krejci, maybe.
Yeah.
And the Panthers were shorthanded on that one. But getting it back to the point, getting all the traffic up in front and taking away the eyes of Linus Ullmark. And that right there was the key for the Florida Panthers to win this game.
So, I mean, Ullmark needs to be uncomfortable. And so he's elite goaltender this season. And the Panthers going to have to do the dirty stuff, in order to get stuff by him. And because you can only rely on high end speed and things like that. You got to get down and dirty, take your shots, try and get rebounds, try and get into the paint, try and get in front of him and take out his eyes. It's an all out assault that they have to do towards Ullmark in order to make this happen, to see if they can pull off this upset. Because I mean, if you're shooting, yeah, you can. The Panthers are known to shoot everything at goalies, but quality chances and making goalies work is what's gonna be the difference here. So Ullmark, they're gonna make adjustments. Well, game 3 is gonna be really interesting to see how Boston's gonna respond to Florida, because the Panthers disrupted them, didn't allow them to kind of get too settled in. Every time the Bruins came storming back a little bit, the Panthers would just take back the momentum, and in the third period they just didn't let it go.
Yeah, and keeping that foot on the gas with Sam Bennett finishing his check and then creating that 2-on-1 from Tkachuk to Carter Verhaeghe to make it 4-2, which Linus Ullmark had honestly no chance, and the amount of frustration that was happening as well, multiple 4-on-4s with open ice in the third period. the amount of frustration that happened after the Florida Panthers took a 5-2 lead as well with Forbort, Charlie Coyle, Frederick, all and of course no 6 headshot to Eric Stahl as well towards the end of the game.
Yeah, he was bleeding
well.
too.
So we might hear that Nosek might go for a hearing, because that was a penalty that was a penalty that should have been called. Paul Maurice living on the bench as well, so I don't know. So hopefully
It's amazing
we are.
how the Boston Bruins true colors come out when they feel a little adversity, huh? So
Yeah, and
just like any other little hockey team, it's like, oh,
and this is the day after, and this is the day after the whole what happened with Michael Bunting on Eric Chernak last night in Toronto as well. So the Department of Player Safety is definitely looking out on these as well. And what one other thing is Brandon Montour, second goal on the night, and just the incredible season that he has continued to carry over.
First star.
Yeah, absolutely. And Colin White with a great screen in front. And of course, let's talk about the trickle down effect of Sam Bennett being in the lineup and how it works, how the different lines are just working cohesively when you are back in your role, like Lindell back to the third line, and of course with a Stanley Cup champion and Eric Stahl being on that fourth line, the veteran experience, and it helped with his goal going up the gut, and then Colin White having that screen in front of Linus Ullmark that got the 5th goal of the game. It's just the Panthers are healthy, Francisco, and it's great to see that they are at the right time.
They got healthy at the right time. They got hot at the right time, and with Bennett back, it putting guys back into their normal roles puts a lot less pressure on them, so they can play their game without having to try and overdo something just to make up for the lack of certain players. So, like Bennett was so noticeable today.
Absolutely.
He was the X factor, I would say, during this game, because I mean, and we'd been saying it throughout the entire end of the season, last quarter of the season. He was out, and he was just like man, this guy is huge for the Panthers. That's why they signed him to that extension. Him, Sam Reinhart, they need all of these pieces. As much as they didn't repeat the President's Trophy performance or anything like that, but these guys are still the same guys from last season that put together that remarkable regular season. But now, playoff time, they're healthy, and they were able to got one out of the Bruins, which I think maybe a lot of fans and a lot of outsiders probably did not expect them to take one, at least in Boston, which is huge. They took one on the road.
And we haven't even mentioned that Patrice Bergeron didn't play again in this one. And this was the moment we heard the news of Patrice Bergeron missing. And there might be more of a conversation come next season about load management in the NHL, because the injury that happened to Bergeron happened in game 82. Took him out for precautionary reasons, and it was like, okay, he's probably likely to win to play in game 1. And look what happens. He doesn't play in either of the games. And the moment that we heard Sam Bennett was healthy and good to go, it's like, this is your time to take advantage. And listen to this. Boston Bruins, we know what their home record is, 34-4-3. But not a single road opponent went into TD Garden this season and scored 6 goals until tonight. The Florida Panthers, only one of 2 teams, of course, to beat them in the regular season outside of Ottawa. But as far as goals against that the Boston Bruins give up versus a single opponent, it had the most they've given up has been to the Florida Panthers. So this, even if the Florida Panthers don't end up winning this series, the Boston Bruins, big challenge that they knew coming in, and so far through 2 games, if you average it out, it's 3.5 goals into 2 games. But man, the Panthers, they show that they could run it up your throat if you allow them.
The NHL, I think the entire NHL is on notice with regards to the Boston Bruins. Great regular season, fantastic, broke all these records. playoff start doesn't really matter anymore. The Lightning experienced that a few years ago. Now it's the Bruins. If the Panthers can hang with them, anybody else in the Eastern Conference can too. So today showed that, yeah, I mean, the Panthers could do this. A lot of things have to go right. But it's possible. Just there's a sliver of a chance. They're the underdogs, but they're wearing those lead dog shirts before the game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and by no means is should the Panthers feel good about themselves going back to FLA Live Arena? Absolutely, but if you want a chance to win the series, you can't drop either one of these games at FLA Live Arena on Thursday and Friday, because you're only going to give the Boston Bruins that moment, not only home ice advantage back, but the confidence that, okay, they let one slip at home, and the fact that they got them back on the road, the confidence is back. But you cannot afford at all to allow the Boston Bruins to come up with a win in either of these next two home games at FLA Live Arena starting Friday night. But we're going to transition over to segment number 3, where we're going to go around the NHL and talk about the Stanley Cup playoffs, what big storylines, and also talk about the Charlotte Checkers as well. We're going to discuss that next here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. But first, we're going to tell you all about eBay Motors. And a championship team is about each player being a perfect fit. Same with your vehicle. So for parts that fit, head to eBay Motors and look for the green check. Stay in the game with eBay, guaranteed fit. ebaymotors.com. Let's ride. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. Third and final segment here on this Thursday, April 20th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. I'm Armando Velez. I got Florida Panthers historian Francisco Oporta here on the show, and Marlins historian as well. Let's not forget that one once again. So around the NHL, of course, I recorded last night's episode. Last night/today's episode after the Eastern Conference game. So Winnipeg goes into Vegas and wins 5-1, only allowing 17 shots on goal on Connor Hellebuyck. So it wasn't him that was stealing the show. But man, how the storylines of, is this the last ride for this core in Winnipeg, and Pierre-Luc Dubois coming up big, Blake Wheeler as well, Adam Lowry. And then the surprise of the night was Seattle going into Colorado. Of course, the injury to Gabriel Landeskog. He's not going to be playing at all through the postseason.
And former, dear Lord,
say again.
I mean, there's talks that he might affect his career. Like
maybe. And former Florida Panther Alex Wennberg got on the scoreboard for Seattle last night.
Goal and assist, as
well. And I was double screening today's game between the Florida Panthers and Boston Bruins, and Canes Islanders. Did you know that a Sebastian Aho scored a goal for the Carolina Hurricanes, but it wasn't that Sebastian Aho that you thought?
Oh boy, I didn't notice, but we've got the dual Ahos, the twin Ahos right now.
So Sebastian Aho of the Islanders, defenseman, gave Carolina an own goal. Tried getting it back, and a weird bounce got by Sorokin. Sorokin didn't see it coming at all. I'm just like, oh no, that's a bad goal by and it was on the power play too, as they were trying to attempt a zone exit. So that was the 2-0 hole early, but the New York Islanders roar back as well and make it a game, get it to overtime, and then Jesper Foss scores in overtime to give the Carolina Hurricanes a 2-0 series lead. And the surprise of the night, Francisco, was we're currently recording as the Minnesota Wild and Dallas Stars are playing right now. Dallas is winning 4-3, but the surprise of the night was out after Philip Gustafson had a great performance against the Dallas Stars. It's Marc-Andre Fleury. It's Marc-Andre Fleury in the net for the Minnesota Wild. How shocked were you when you heard that it was Flower between the pipes?
I mean, I don't. I mean, it's 5-3 now. That you just said. I just saw the score update.
Oh,
So,
yep, I just got it too.
so I mean, was it for injury reasons, or was it just as a game time decision? It really depends, because I wouldn't see any reason why you wouldn't play the hot goaltender. But
I'm not sure at all, but I the moment I saw that Marc-Andre Fleury was starting over Gustafson, I was just a little shocked to see. But
seems like Fleury's always in some sort of weird predicament with regards to like starting in a playoff game. It's kind of it followed him in Pittsburgh towards the end. It happened in Vegas, and now it's in Minnesota. It's kind of weird, with his career. He's a Hall of Famer. I don't get me wrong, but he's had a tumultuous in every stop he's been. He's had a tumultuous period where he's either starting or he's pulled, and I don't know. I think people just kind of go on reputation for him right now. I don't know what Minnesota's reasoning is, but that's probably going to change with Dallas scoring 5 goals.
yeah, and even in the year that Pittsburgh won, with Matt Murray being the main starter, I mean, Fleury got some games here and there, and then it was back to Matt Murray as he finished off the run for Pittsburgh as well. One thing that I did not mention yesterday, in regards to the Charlotte Checkers, I mentioned that they did drop their first game of their 3-game series against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms by a final score of 4-3. Game 2 is tonight at Bojangles Coliseum as they try to save their season and even up the series at 1. But the Charlotte Checkers will be participating in the Queen City Stadium Series again, where they'll be facing off against the Buffalo Sabres AHL affiliate in the Rochester Americans out in Charlotte. So I think that's a pretty cool thing going on that they're going to have there. And I might consider making a trip over to Charlotte. I've never been to the Carolinas, so it gives me a good excuse to go to a game.
An outdoor game that they're playing an outdoor game in Charlotte? Is that what it is?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So we'll assume it's at the minor league, the Charlotte Knights minor league ballpark.
Yeah.
Or because I can't see them selling out the Carolina Panthers stadium.
No, it's at the baseball park. Who do the Charlotte Knights belong to? Do you know?
I'm not sure who they're affiliated with.
I know Durham Bulls is the Rays.
Yeah, but I can't name off the top of my head who the Knights are.
But yeah, Stadium Series game that the Charlotte Checkers will be hosting. That'll be Friday, January 12th, 2024. So all of you guys have plenty of time to plan ahead if you guys want to see the Charlotte Checkers play in an outdoor game, because they have a better chance, of course, geographically, than the Florida Panthers do in an outdoor game. So
Lone Depot Park's right there. It's got a roof. Freeze it, then see how the humidity is. I don't know. They can figure out a way. Yes, there is a way. It can happen.
There is a way.
2023.
Mm-hmm. With the technology, yes, you can find a way. But let's center it back to the Panthers here. Game 3 is Friday, 7:30 p.m. Let me check the TV network that it's on for the viewers. It'll be on TNT. So it'll be on TNT Friday night at 7:30. It'll be the Turner version of the postseason, as both the Carolina Hurricanes and New York Islanders series and Dallas Stars Minnesota Wild will be on TBS. So the TNT crew will be definitely busy doing those double headers on the night. But number one, how excited are you? Number 2, how crucial it is for the Panthers to win.
I'm not getting overhyped.
Neither
I came into the series okay with low expectations.
Same.
Not to discredit the Panthers, not to discredit their run in the final games of the season to make the playoffs. Nothing to insult the team itself, but they are the underdogs, and I'm not gonna feel bad if they had gotten swept by the Bruins. I'm like, hey, I mean, you had a historical team come through, and what else can you do? It just seems like the Panthers always seem to run into teams that just kind of take it all the way in the first round or something like that, or at least make it through into the Stanley Cup Finals. So, uh, but yeah, I'll be up for Friday, especially now that the team can hang. If they, because that crowd is gonna be, there's a lot of Bostonians are gonna go. We know
Yes.
this. That we know that's gonna be the way that series is, and so the Panthers fans need to come with it to try and combat that. There's going to be a lot of yellow and black as well as the red on the other side. So I'm not getting too hyped up with regards to the series itself, but I'm ready for Friday. It's going to be awesome. It's going to be chippy,
Yes.
especially the ending for game 2. So I would look to see the beginning of that first period, because I mean, Boston could look to try and play a little bit dirty to get under Florida's skin and try and throw them off their game. Um, but if the Panthers can find a way to hit back and have a great first period, maybe score a goal or two, or especially at inopportune times, like towards the end of a power play or towards the end of a period, like they can demoralize Boston a bit and have them thinking in the locker room, like, oh man, and just set in just a little bit of worry in there, just strike a little bit of fear in that team. So
Yeah, and I think they did a good job of that on the road and got maybe a little bit in their heads a lot. That's for sure. But Francisco, I want to thank you so much for coming on to this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you for coming on, and of course, first time that you come on celebrating a win. Uh,
finally.
for the listeners, if you want to follow Francisco on Twitter, you could follow him at FLA Cats History or at FJOJR on Twitter. He doesn't only join podcasts here, but he hosts his own podcast, Sports Scoop, as well. And of course, he is a historian as well for the Miami Marlins. So, Francisco, thank you so much for joining, and I hope to see you next time, my friend.
All right. Yeah, I'll be back. Let's get another W and I can pop on again. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe this will be a thing. Maybe they'll get lucky and you just have to have me on the show again. You know.
possibly. So let's hope, my friend.
All righty.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows on the Locked On NHL network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Flip Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. And for everydayers, make sure to come back to tomorrow's edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, where it is a Fairbanks Friday edition of the show. We'll be breaking down the fallout of Game 2, discuss what the players are saying in between Games 2 and 3, and prepare for Game 3 in South Florida, 7:30 Friday night at FLA Live Arena. So I'm Armando Velez with Francisco Oporta, and you've been listening to Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We're your team every day.